This is the Your Career Story podcast, and you're listening to episode 83. Want to impress your boss? Try this. Welcome to Your Career Story podcast, a show that's designed for rockstar professionals looking for that extra booster shot of confidence in their careers. Whether you're trying to get clarity on a job transition, want some work-life balance inspiration, or need a strategy to snag that promotion or raise, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Jenna Viviano, ex-Wall Streeter turned startup junkie who now coaches hundreds of clients, empowering them to take back control of the job search and land their dream job. So sit back, grab a glass of wine, and prepare yourself for your weekly boost of career confidence. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Your Career Story podcast. We are almost to the end of the year. I'm sorry, what? I feel like it was just yesterday. My fiance and I were getting engaged, and then we were quarantining for what felt like forever. And April was like 52 weeks long. And now we are entering out of 2020. So today's episode is about how to really impress your boss. So I know we're getting a lot of questions as we're entering into what often is review season, or kind of looking at the past year and evaluating what did I do, what did I not do. So I thought this was a really fun episode to share with you some three main pointers. You know, I like some practicality, but three main pointers for you to be able to impress your boss and to think outside the box of what would actually impress him or her. But before we get into that, I just want to thank you guys for listening. We're entering out of the kind of Thanksgiving season, and just I've been really reflecting on this year, and I know it's so easy to just see the dumpster fire that is 2020. But I've been really trying to practically look and see what are the things that went really well this year? What are the small things that I'm grateful for? The things in the mundane. And if you got my email last week, you know that I said, I'm thankful for masks so I could visit with my grandmother. I am going to be thankful that my husband's baby blue eyes are glistening every time I tell him I love his cooking, which I do, by the way. And so I've just been really looking for those small things. So I want to thank you, the listener, my audience who has been faithfully listening for a long time. Some of you have been listening since the very beginning. We're about to hit 100 episodes early next year. And I just want to thank you for being a part of this journey. I've so enjoyed doing this podcast. It's one of my favorite things I get to do in the business. And I just have a question for you and a request. If you have been listening for a while, share an episode with your friend. Not just so they can hear my voice, but I do believe that a lot of the information that we're talking about is not common in the podcast sphere. There's a lot of podcasts out there for entrepreneurs and, but there's really nothing for ambitious female professionals that are working still in a 9-to-5 capacity. And so I want women to feel inspired, to feel like they can find their purpose, they can land their dream job, they can negotiate thousands more, and they can start their business if they want to. I just really believe in the female professional. And so if you've been listening to this for a while and you think of a friend who is struggling right now with their job change or just needs some inspiration, please send an episode to them. And if you've been enjoying it and listening and you haven't given us a review, please, 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 we love reading those. It really helps keep us stay motivated. And you can always hide your name. So we don't have to know your first and last name if you're worried about an employer somehow potentially finding out, which they won't, because if they did, they're either probably looking for a job themselves or they got way too much time on their hands and you shouldn't even care if they find that out because they've been doing too much research. And the other thing that I wanted to remind you of, if you've been listening for a while and you've been realizing probably it's time for you to make a job change, is that we have our free live masterclass up and running. So about a month or so ago, we did a live masterclass, how to land your dream job without losing your resume to the online abyss. It was so fun, so successful. People loved it. So we decided to put up the replay on our website. So you can find that at jennaviviano.com/masterclass. And within that teaching, we give you some pointers and some tips. We share with you what you may be doing wrong and how you need to be rethinking your job search. We also share a little bit about our methodology, the Recruit the Employer methodology, methodology. And if you are realizing, gosh, I can't do the do-it-yourself method anymore. I really need some help structuring my search. I need some help selling myself. I don't know what I want to do. Recruit the Employers where we help you do that. We have coaches in our program to help shepherd you along. And if you're realizing 2021 is the year that, crap, I need a new job, we would love to see you in there. So if you want to find out more about Recruit the Employer and just some free pointers on how to land your dream job, just go to jennaviviano.com/masterclass. All right, let's hop into the episode for today. So we're going to be talking about how to impress your boss. So this can feel a little odd, right? I feel like there is common misconception that the only way to impress your boss is to be the first one in the door and the last one out. Like that's the only piece of advice that I got when I was going into the workforce of be a sponge, which I do believe is true. I think that everybody should be a sponge in their career, whether you are early in your career, mid in your career, if you're managing people, if you're an executive. I think being a sponge and just like taking up everything around you is so important. But that was the only piece of advice I got was like, stay late, come in early. And I was like, cool, that's not sustainable for my entire life. So, and that bleeds, especially when we're in a remote environment. It bleeds way too much and the boundaries are not set. So I wanted to share with you a little bit about 3 very practical things that I believe that you can be doing that's going to impress your boss in the long haul. And let me put a caveat here. If you have a jerky boss, there's probably nothing that you can do to ever actually impress them because they have their own issues that they're going through. So I want to just be clear that bosses are still humans. They still have bad days, maybe bad weeks, maybe bad years. You may not know what's going on with somebody in their personal life that may be impacting how they're treating you in the workplace. Sometimes our bosses, it's really not about us. It's really about them. So I just want to say that kind of up front. We're not going to talk about all the emotions around that and how to handle those politics and how to show up better for those people. We're not going to do that on this one, but I do think it's important to just acknowledge that because some of you may be listening and saying, well, Jenna, I can't do anything. My boss is literally unpleasable. They were never pleased. So hear me when I tell you, I understand that. I know a lot of people, that's their reality. And again, that's a whole other episode that we could go into about why that is and why they never got the proper training. And that's not totally your fault. But we're going to talk about the things that we can control that we're not really necessarily caring if we impress our manager, but if you have a solid manager, these things will impress them. Make sense? Okay. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is how to be your own advocate. The second thing that we're going to be talking about is how to be a solution-oriented person. And then the third thing we're going to be talking about is my favorite topic, posting to LinkedIn. So I want to say that your boss's mission is not to be out to get you. Some of you are going to say, yes, that is my boss's goal. But at the end of the day, a boss really wants you to succeed because if you're succeeding, they're most likely going to be better set up to succeed as well. And here is the issue with most managers that I have found is they're not able because they were never taught. And especially if you have a new manager, they were never really taught to articulate what they need and what they want and how they want it delegated or how they want things done. Maybe they haven't gone through the personal development work they need to do in order to show up as a better leader in the office. So there are some pieces to the puzzle where we have to remind ourselves that our bosses are not out to get us. And I think they want us to impress them, right? They want us to succeed. I'm thinking about somebody that I'm managing right now, and she's doing an amazing, amazing job. And I want her to succeed. I want her to impress me. I was working with somebody before that, and they just weren't. And I wanted them to succeed so bad, but they just were not showing up and being an advocate for themselves. They were not being proactive or being a solutions-oriented person. And so I'm going to share with you a couple things as being a manager now, but then also thinking back on my own 9-to-5 time. So the first thing that I think will help you impress your boss is for you to be your own advocate. So this is kind of like a catchphrase that's often used. It's used in, work. It's used at home. It's used in relationships. It's used all over the place. But so we're going to talk obviously specifically about how this plays out at work. So how do you be your own advocate at work? Does it mean speaking up in a meeting? Does it mean, creating boundaries? What does it actually mean to be your own advocate? So I think it can mean a bunch of different things. One of the first things that I believe that being your own advocate looks like is recording what you're working on and celebrating your own work wins. So a lot of managers, especially if they're managing a lot of people, don't have the capacity to really know exactly what you're working on while you're working on it, right? You may think that they do, and that's what they're thinking about. They're thinking about a zillion other things. So it's your job to help put in front of them the things that you're accomplishing, the things that you're working on, the things that you're being proactive about, because you cannot assume that they are going to see it. Now, I know that feels uncomfortable for women because they don't want to, and I'm using this as a collective group. I know not every woman is like this, but women often feel uncomfortable because they don't want to be self-promoting. It is your job to show what you're working on to express your value. If you are not clearly defining your value throughout not even just when your interview process, which you guys have heard me talk about, but throughout the lifetime of your time at an organization, it's going to be really hard for your name to be up there for promotion. It's going to be really hard for you to feel like you're being valued because you feel like you're being hidden. Part of it is you need to put yourself in front of your manager. So when we're talking about reviews, when we're talking about end of year reviews or even quarterly reviews, you can do a couple of things. One, I would set time on your manager's calendar on a quarterly basis to discuss your goals, to discuss what you've been working on, and to ask them where you could do better. You need to proactively be doing that. We need to stop waiting for managers to give us permission to do things, and we need to start taking ownership of it ourselves. Okay, we are in charge of our own learning and development. I think we've gotten a little soft in corporate where we have whole learning and development teams and they do amazing work. I was on a learning and development team, but we cannot expect them to do it for us. We have to also be proactive in our lives and show up in our corporate careers and not just wait for the learning and development team to say, here is a training, you should take it. Because let's be real, most learning and development things we don't want to take anyways. I mean, that's just reality. So it's your job to be your own advocate. So I recommend all my clients do this, even when they're doing job transitions. You need to be recording on a weekly basis what you have accomplished. What were your work wins? What were the things that you failed at? What did you learn at? We're going to be having our journal coming out in the new year. And I'm so excited about this because I can actually then refer you to the journal to actually get and purchase and start recording these work wins for yourself. But it's going to help you in your quarterly reviews. It's going to help you in your yearly reviews when you're up for a promotion, when you want to be up for a promotion. Recording it is the first step to being your own advocate. The other thing is to seek out feedback. So I know that even for myself, it is very uncomfortable to get feedback because it feels like it's a personal attack on me. We have got to learn, and this is me, I'm learning this with you. We have got to learn how to separate ourselves emotionally from feedback. Somebody saying you didn't do a good job on this project doesn't mean that you are bad. Okay, we have to stop equating you are bad with hey, this is where you could improve on this project. It's so easy for us to spiral into this hum of not enoughs, right? We go down that hole and then we feel like we're not good enough because we feel like that's what we're hearing. Where if you are somebody who has really done your work, who's really worked on some personal development, who has really, dealt with your ish, which we're all dealing with our ish for long periods of time for the rest of our lives. But if you're more proactive in that, you're going to be able to seek feedback and be able to objectively look at that and not emotionally ingest it. So I use this analogy a lot when I'm talking to clients. We can either take feedback like it's a dagger to our heart and it completely pierces us and we're basically dying because of it. Or we could treat it like it's a burr. So it's a different level. We've kind of gotten past, okay, it doesn't pierce me as much, but it's just more of an irritation. I know that there are some things for me, like social media for me, when somebody disagrees with something on my LinkedIn post or, somebody didn't like my webinar and sends me an email about it, like that still feels like what I call a burr. It's like those little prickly things that stick to you. You have to like kind of shove off a little bit. They don't exactly like pierce you, but they are kind of just irritating. Are you absolutely frustrated with your job search? You apply online and hear nothing back. Or worse, you get a thank you very much for applying, but we decided to go another way. What? Did anyone even look at your resume? You have no idea what you did wrong and you want to know exactly how to hack the system. Well, friend, I've got you covered. Wouldn't it be great to have hiring managers run after you? Wouldn't it be great if your job search was a heck of a lot easier? And wouldn't it be absolutely spectacular if you could get inside a hiring manager's head and figure out exactly what they wanted from you? Well, that's why I created my free training, How to Land Your Dream Job Without Losing Your Resume to the Online Abyss. If you're looking to understand what the heck recruiters want and how to be seen as the only person for the job, you need to check out this training. Head on over to www.jennaviviano.com/masterclass to sign up. This training is compiled from years of experience working with mid to senior level corporate women. In this free masterclass, I'll walk you through where you're getting stuck and why you aren't getting traction, the behind the scenes reasons an employer isn't picking up your resume, how to sell yourself in a non-sleazy way so that hiring managers come running after you. Plus, for those of you that want to hop on live, I have an extra special bonus for you. How to Land Your Dream Job will show you what you are doing wrong and exactly what you need to change so that hiring managers and recruiters fight over you, instead of you blindly applying online and hoping something sticks to the wall. Again, head on over to www.jennaviviano.com/masterclass to sign up for this free training. I can't wait to see you in there. I and you should want to become like ping pong balls. So whenever something or want the advice to look like a ping pong ball. So when that feedback comes to us, we let it bounce off. We take what we need. Like, right, there just saying that, when someone gives us feedback, it doesn't mean that it's always not necessarily something we need to evaluate, right? Sometimes when I get emails about my webinar, I'm like, that was a good point. Right? I probably should listen to that. That is more in line with who I want to be. So I'm going to take that, but I'm going to erase all the meanness that they put in here in this email, right? All the nastiness. So we need to be like ping pong balls. So seeking feedback is actually being your own advocate. And if you're doing it correctly, you're going to build up that resilience over time to be more like the ping pong, but you're never going to do it if you don't ask for feedback. Because you're never going to act like that ping pong ball. You're always going to feel like it's a dagger coming towards you. So I want you to get used to getting feedback. That's part of being your own advocate. When you're doing that, that's going to impress your hiring manager. That's going to impress your boss. It's going to impress the leaders in your company if you're proactively seeking that out. Another thing that you can proactively seek out is a mentor. Again, I think we've gotten a little soft within corporate where we're too scared to ask for one, or we're just waiting for a mentoring program to come into existence for us. One of the blessings of being at a small startup when I was in corporate and then also getting out of corporate is I had to create that for myself. And I'm very grateful because that's one of the biggest questions I get from people is like, how do you actually find a mentor? And part of it is like, you just ask, hey, I would love to take you to coffee. Hey, I really admire what you've done in your career. Are you looking to mentor anybody? I mean, you could be as blatant as that, but part of it is being your own advocate and pressing your boss is to make sure that they are not your only source of leadership and advice. I really think it's wise when professionals find people within their companies to mentor them and then outside of their companies. The outside of their companies can help them with the office politics they may be dealing with, or maybe their leader is kind of going off the rails a little bit and they can be more candid about what's going on with somebody externally than somebody that's internally. Obviously, you have to be careful about legal issues and all that kind of stuff, but I do think I always had somebody internally at my organization and externally at my organization that I would ask for feedback on. And the other thing is women, I know that we often want to have other female mentors, and I think that's super wise. I had a female mentor and I had a male mentor. Some of my best mentors have been men. And so I don't want us to totally write off that, as a female, we can only have female mentors. I think there's huge wisdom in some really great men who are advocating for women who want to see you succeed. Find those men as well. Don't just hold yourself off to just finding a female. And the other thing that I want to remind you of what it looks like to be your own advocate is to be proactive in taking on assignments. So again, with the whole, you're going to hear me say this a lot, but taking back control of your career, right? Stepping up and stop worrying if somebody's going to give you the opportunity. It's you taking it. If you see a project that's being worked on and you want to be a part of that project, you just go and ask that team if you can help and then deal with the fallout if your boss is like, hey, you can't be working on that right now. Okay, being proactive is going to impress your boss. It's going to impress your boss. I know for myself, when I was working at the New York Stock Exchange, you guys have heard me talk about this before, but I realized I wasn't really good at finance while working on Wall Street. So I was really interested in what the PR team was doing, the marketing team was doing, and I would go plot myself down there and I would talk to their team. I was building relationships for our team, but also I just loved learning what they were working on. And when there was a big project, I would offer my ideas. I'd be like, I'd love to be involved in that meeting. And sometimes it didn't make sense because my schedule and my boss needed me to work on other things. But when there was some extra room, I took took it upon myself to build relationships with those people and to be involved in that area because it was something I was interested in. It was something that I wanted to learn more about. And so I was being proactive in my own career. I was being my own advocate and I was taking charge of it. So for you, if you are in your career right now and you're thinking about what are some ways that I can impress my boss? Part of it is taking back control of your own career. It's advocating for yourself. It's seeking feedback. It's proactively finding yourself a mentor. It is recording what you're working on. That is all encompassing into being your own advocate. And the last thing I'll say, we've done other episodes on this. And again, if you need help with this is the best skill that you could learn how to have in your career is learning how to negotiate. So I'm not going to get into how to negotiate. We've done other episodes on that. And again, in Recruit the Employer, we walk you through scripts and exactly how to negotiate your salary. We're having people do that during COVID, y'all. So don't have anyone tell you that you can't negotiate during COVID. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. But that's part of being your own advocate is negotiating your salary, negotiating benefits, negotiating what you're working on. All of those things come into play, and that's not slimy. It's not skeezy. If you're doing it right, it's actually you being your own advocate. So that's the first way to impress your boss. The second way to impress your boss is to be a solution-oriented person. So my husband will always joke with me if we are talking about something or I'm coming to him and he's like, you're being a problem person. You're not providing me any solutions. You're only showing me problems. And sometimes he is very much right. Sometimes I just want to complain, right? Well, sometimes with our bosses, we have to be a solution-oriented person. We can't just come with our problems. We have to come with a solution. So let's say, for instance, you're seeing something that's going on in the workplace and you are feeling like, gosh, there's no work boundaries. Let's just talk about that one. Right? We are working all hours of the night. Nobody's getting rest. Like, this is not sustainable. If you just come in and say all those things, that's just airing your grievances and just complaining. And that can feel actually very offensive. And the person's probably going to get defensive on the other side versus coming in and saying, hey, this is what's going on. You may or may not be aware. Our team is working like all hours of the night to get this project done. Here are some suggestions to help lighten that load so we don't burn out our team. Here's option A, option B, option C. Right? It's coming to the table with solutions, not just problems. That is a dream for a hiring manager. I know when I was working with Sarah, my old marketing manager who used to be on my team, and she has moved on to work at an amazing organization. She would always come to me with solutions. So she would never just say like, hey, here's the problem. She'd say, hey, here's the problem, but here's what I'm thinking we can do to work around that. That was so life-giving for me as a leader because I had a zillion other things I was worried about. And if she just came to me with a problem with no real like, hey, here's a pathway to how we can get out of this, I would have to do that work to figure that out. One of the best ways to serve your leader is to help them figure out problems and to be useful. And to be honest, it's going to make you feel useful too. If they take your ideas and they run with it, that's going to be such a gift. Part of that is studying what does your boss need. You need to be a student of your boss. You need to be a student of what their needs are, what they care about, what drives them, what motivates them. It's actually the psychology around it more so than what are their skills, right? Getting to know them as a human and getting to know what drives them is going to be so impactful. I know for myself that when I worked at different places, I knew that my one boss at the Muse, if you came to him with a plan, you came to him like with a plan, you knew exactly how you're going to get something done and to solve whatever issue was coming on, he would be on board, but you had to show up with that plan. Otherwise it wasn't going to happen because he was motivated by, driving revenue. That was his main. So if you could show him this is going to help the bottom line revenue, then you were going to get whatever you needed to get done. And the same thing holds true with other places that I was at. I would really pay attention to my managers. I would really pay attention to what their needs were. I wasn't always perfect at it for sure, but I got to really know who they were as people and what really drove them and what mattered to them so that I could, one, relate to them because it's just important. And two, that whenever we had something that was going on in the office, I knew how to talk to them in a way that they would receive it and actually make a change and then also value me in the process. It doesn't have to be either or. It can be a both and conversation. So it's really coming to the table with ideas. It's studying what your boss needs and it's taking something off their plate. That is the biggest thing. If you are in Recruit the Employer, or if you've heard me talk before, you probably heard me say, at the end of the day, you as an employer are either going to make a company money, save a company saving money or make someone's life easier. If you have a manager, which all of you people that are listening to this most likely do, if you have a manager, your job, no matter what it is, no matter if you have those other two, right, making a job or making money or saving money, you're going to make somebody's life easier. Your job as an employee is to make someone's life easier. So I want you to think about, how do you be a solution person in your organization? That's really going to impress your hiring manager. Being your own advocate, exacting what you've been working on. But then secondly, be a solution-oriented person. Don't be like myself when I come to my husband and give him all the problems. And he's like, can you come to me with a little solution, please? A couple of options may be nice. If you come to the table with some solutions, you are going to free your manager up. You are going to be so invaluable to them. So I would really, really encourage you to think about what's some projects that you're working on right now. As we're entering into the holidays, what are some ways that you can take some things off your manager's plate? How do you serve? And then show up. So I think we have a common misconception where, like, if we're serving people in our jobs, that means that we're going to be taken advantage of. I believe that you have to serve and show up for yourself. So serve your coworkers, but then show up for yourself. That's the part that I think a lot of people, especially my ladies, miss. We are so worried about looking humble that we don't show up for ourselves. So it's a both and conversation. Okay. And then the third thing that's kind of a little bit outside of the box, but I really believe, I was just on a podcast recently, the Beyond Barriers podcast, which if you like this podcast, you're going to love Beyond Barriers. But I was interviewed by one of the women there, and she was asking me, what do you see happening in the future with the industry? And I was talking a lot about LinkedIn. And you all know that I love LinkedIn. We have a whole course, LinkedIn by Lunch, to teach you how to polish your profile in 3 hours or less and actually use your profile once it's been optimized. But one of the things that I am seeing happening more and more on LinkedIn is the idea around thought leadership. And what I'm anticipating happening over the long term, it's not going to happen overnight, but that employees, you 9-to-5ers, even though you're not entrepreneurs, your personal brand on LinkedIn, what you're posting is actually going to be a part of what differentiates you from other candidates. So let's think about this for a second. If you are posting on LinkedIn, I have somebody that I'm thinking about that I used to work with at the New York Stock Exchange, and he would post about his industry. He was in marketing and social media, and he would post about his industry. He would post about things that they were doing at the exchange. He would post about innovation that he was seeing. He was very active, and it helped build his brand. And I can guarantee you that helped him land his future opportunity that he's in right now. That's at a higher level. He's really building something from the ground up and doing something he's really excited about. And I anticipate that I'm going to see more and more of that happening. So if you really want to impress your boss, if you really want to go above and beyond, I would start paying attention to other people in your industry that are starting to post on LinkedIn. Evaluate and understand, what are they posting? How are they posting? When are they posting? And then see if there's a way for you to put your hat in the ring. I have another client of mine who I worked with, and she actually was in the Recruit the Employer coaching program that we had way back when. And she has since launched her own business. But while she was working at her company, she became known as like the LinkedIn superstar at her company because she just kept posting about things in her industry and it was helping her in her business. And the CEO took notice of her, because they're like, wow, you're really active on LinkedIn. We need to be more active on LinkedIn. Teach us your ways. We love what you're posting about the industry. It's helping position us as the company as thought leaders. So this is where I don't want you to be fearful and I don't want you to overthink it. It's going to help you build your personal brand and build up your network and share your own expertise, but it's going to impress your boss in the process. And it's going to impress future hiring managers. Without getting into all the algorithms and how they work on LinkedIn, because I know that will bore you on this episode, I really want you to consider just starting to slowly post on LinkedIn. Here's what it can look like. It doesn't have to be something that's original content by you. It could be you looking at what's going on in your industry. Maybe you're seeing an article, maybe in Inc. or Entrepreneur or Forbes or wherever, right? And you copy that link, and you write a little bit of commentary about what you got out of that, and you share it with your network, right? That's one way to simply start dipping your toe in. The second thing is, if you really want to dip your toe in, you want to jump like both feet in, is if you want to come up with your own original content. Here's what works really well on LinkedIn, and I have done literally thousands of posts. Ones that tell stories, right? Ones that tell stories. I believe that behind the scenes sharing what's going on in your office. Maybe it's like you want to share your team and you're all in remote and maybe you're doing like a holiday happy hour or something like that. That could be another way to show behind the scenes of what it looks like to work at your organization. And then the other thing that you could do is actually produce content on your specific industry expertise. So maybe it's around marketing, maybe it's around leadership. When I was working with a woman before who was really trying to get on more panels and be seen as a woman in tech, the things that we worked on were she would have to write something about women in leadership, women in tech, and then she would write one about just like leadership principles in general. She created different pillars of where she would bounce around between different types of content to show her expertise and show what she was capable of. And it helps elevate her within her organization as well as with everybody around her that was connected to her on LinkedIn. Now that can feel really intimidating. I know the first time I posted to LinkedIn, I was like, people are so going to judge me. My past employers are going to think I'm crazy. My people that I worked with in investment banking are going to think I'm so weird and they're going to think I'm a total imposter. And you know what? I got over that. I had to get over that. I had to build resilience. With each post, I built more and more resilience. And here's the thing. In the beginning, no one really looked at my posts. No one looked at my posts. But the only way that I was able to gain 20,000 followers in less than 9 months this year was because of everyday action that I took to build that following. Now, you may not have any interest in building a following on LinkedIn, and that's not what I'm saying here. What I am encouraging you to do is to do a little bit every week, because week upon week upon week, day upon day is going to build up over time. It's going to show that you are dedicated and that you are building your personal brand for the long haul, not just for the quick wins. And it's going to impress your boss. So I hope this was helpful today, guys. Just to recap what we talked about, the 3 ways that are ways that you can impress your boss, impress the person who is leading you, is number 1, to be your own advocate. And quite honestly, everybody needs to be doing that, period. Everybody. Number 1 is be your own advocate. Number 2 is be a solution-oriented person. And number 3 is to post on LinkedIn. If you are doing those 3 things, that is one of the best ways to get in front of your boss, to get them to be impressed with you, but then also for you to be fulfilled yourself. All right, guys, this was super fun. I cannot wait to see you next week with another episode on the Your Career Story podcast. Hey, y'all, thanks so much for listening to Your Career Story podcast. I would love to get to meet you. And there are a couple of ways that we can connect in between episodes. First and foremost, I love my LinkedIn. Second is via Instagram. And third is over on my website. I actually have a special spot just for you full of fun, free resources. So all you have to do is go to www.jennaviviano.com/resources. Super simple, for a bunch of freebies that will help you boost your career. Hope to see you next week.